Hi, I'm Mike Edwards, the website is DIY Doctor, and this is part 2 of using epoxy resin. In part 1 you saw how we mix the epoxy resin using the plungers on the top of the cans. The cans are delivered 5 parts of resin to 1 part of hardener, but the pumps that are attached to the top calibrate the situation so that 1 pump of each delivers the correct quantity. So that's how we've mixed it. You can see that in part 1, and now we're going to apply it. This is the second coat we're applying to this surface, and they take about 12 hours to dry in between coats, and then before you can apply the second and or the third coat you need to sand it down slightly. Now the sanding down is done in 2 processes. It doesn't take very long. The first pass is with 80 grit sandpaper, so that's 80 grains of sand, if you like, to 1 square inch. 80 grit sandpaper, and it's simply over the surface lightly with the sandpaper. Now, as you can see, in this situation, rather than use a sanding block, because it's only a light application, I've actually wrapped this sandpaper around a decorator's sponge. Now that gives me enough feel with my fingers to apply the correct pressure on the sandpaper. So I'm just going to finish off this part. Before we started filming we did the other half, so that's done. Okay, so there we have the first pass with the rougher sandpaper, and now the smoother paper. This isn't quite so easy to use with the sponge. We'll pass the sponge inside that. We use a belt paper that would normally go onto a belt sander, and that allows us then simply to go over that gently with a finer sandpaper, ready to give a good key for the resin on the top. So having done that, it's then quite important that we get a cloth and make absolutely sure that we've got all of the dust. If you can have your hoover running, that's a good idea too. But this cloth has been lightly dabbed in white spirit. We use a green white spirit, which is coming onto the market quite soon, but you can use an ordinary white spirit. Doesn't need a great deal of it, just to get rid of all the dust from the surface and make sure that's dust free. And then of course we have the resin in the hardener, mixed as you saw in part 1, to 5 to 1, and then it's quite simply a question of painting that on. Again, it's fairly stiff stuff, but make sure that you run it out completely, and then the epoxy resin and the hardener will give you a completely waterproof surface. Enjoy using the resin. Thank you.